Me and Chatty McChatface are holding it down here tonight. Unfortunately, my little girl got sick. She's ill. She's not feeling good. She had to tap out. We will reschedule her and the original podcast with her, next week or whatever we have. You know what I mean? So, but tonight, what we're actually going to do is, and I'll change the thumbnail later, but tonight what we're going to do is we asked for your questions. We put it out there, and then you guys showed up. So I want to say thank you to our Gen X family, our Gen Xicans out there, for showing up like you did. So we have a ton of questions, and we're going to do our best to answer tonight. If I can't answer them, good old Chatty McChatface is going to answer them. And you know what? Let's have a good old time with that.
Hi, I'm Jason.
And I'm Greg.
We are Gen X, and welcome to our podcast. We're the last generation.
I'm going to give a shout out to all of our listeners out there, everyone who follows us. A big shout out and a huge recognition to our audio only folks out there. You guys know who you are. You guys listen to us just by the audio. I am talking to you. So thank you. You know what? Hey, shout out to Germany. You guys are coming in hot. I see you guys out there. A lot of love coming out of your country. So thank you guys very much. A lot of love coming out of. We are very international on our audio side. So check us out. We are on every audio platform you need us to be on, Gen X or We Adults yet. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, follow, click, comment, and do all the fun things. Let us know you're out there. We're on all the fun platforms. You want to see what we look like, audio folks? Find us on Facebook, find us on YouTube. We are live on Thursday nights. So the audio here is actually live on Thursday. I don't know if I ever actually say that to the audio guys. Oh, wow. Chris McDougall, how are you doing? Yeah, here's confirmation. We have, I'm not going to say that is or not. I can't confirm or deny that is our baby mama. But, yeah, our little baby girl is sick. She is not feeling well. So we have Chris McDougall. How you doing, buddies? Good to see you again. So, Chris, you guys are watching out there. You guys can help, and you can, Chris, I think you can answer a lot of these questions, too. So some of these questions are tonight. Like I said, Chris, I think you might have missed it. Our little girl's sick tonight, so we're going to jump. We asked for your questions. Here are the top questions we had. Oh, let's see. That wasn't that one. It was... So we asked for your questions. Let me put these guys up here on this monitor. Carol from Tennessee. You've raised millennials, Gen Zs, and now Gen Alpha. She's talking about us, me. Which generation made you change the way you parent the most and why? Oh, my God, Becky. It's definitely my Gen Alpha. She's my daughter, so... the whole parenting tactics changed. I've grown, I've matured. I've talked about it on, past podcasts, where I've grown and stuff. So, definitely my alpha, the Gen Alpha, the Gen Z, got, you got most of the old version. And then my older kids, got to see, a lot of the old version of me. So, absolutely the girl, Chris, the question is, you've raised, other, generations other than, the older kids and stuff. Which one made you change the way you parent and most, man? So if you got an answer for that, type us up. I'll let you hit it on the screen. And then Mike from Arizona, as a Gen X kid who had a ton of freedom, how do you justify giving your youngest kid less freedom than you had at the same age? Holy shit. Here's why. Here's why. You guys... my daughter's going into fourth grade, and in my fourth grade year, my parents were, following the band. They were out. The band would play Madru Brothers. They'd play in different spots. This one time they were playing out at Mossdale Marina, and they're playing under the bridge or whatever. They had the stage set anyway, so they're out there playing. My parents out there partying, and I hang out with the kids of their friends, right? And then when it comes bedtime, because you have to put the kids away. Right. We all go into my parents' van, and then there's blankets, like a van with a slide side door, you know what I mean? That kind we're not supposed to get in. We all pile into that van, and that's supposed to be bedtime, supposed to be in there, stay in that van, stay safe, whatever. We can get out and go to the bathroom, whenever we get back in. That was, that's just kind of how we were raised. So, well, one of those kids had a joint. They did. One of them had a joint. So, I was in fourth grade. That other kid, I think, was in sixth grade. and I was with my friend Eric. All good stories start with this one time when I was with Eric. So that was the first time I'd smoked, was in going into 4th grade. I'm not saying my daughter's anywhere near that or near that unsupervised, but you know what can happen in 4th grade? I do. And you know what? Better parenting calls for, knowing where your kid is and being able to have eyes on them and understanding who you put them with and understanding, what kind of, the scene is. If I release my daughter into a crowd of kids from the other people I'm bar hopping with, you know what I mean? What kind of, they're not out there playing volleyball. They're not out there doing practicing, multiplication. You know what I'm saying? That's just not happening. So anyways. Why? Well, not have my daughter have the same freedom as I did? No, absolutely not. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I could be called out for, what's the word when I pick on girls more than boys, or it's unfair based on it. Well, it's a girl, so it's different. There's a word for that. Maybe it's more that, my daughter's not capable or not, I don't want her over a boy, but, maybe my girl's a bigger target or something. You know what I mean? Maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's just, you only get one shot. And then when they're gone, they're gone. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Call me goofy. So, Chris, raising little Izzy. That's the one that made you change your parenting style the most. Get it. I get it. Maybe more patience, maybe more understanding, maybe appreciating time more, maybe. Oh, wait. That was me. That was me with my older kids. You know what I mean? Not slowing down to appreciate it. And baby mama is saying that we have boundaries for her, and the other kids were kind of raised in the they were born in the early 90s and raised in the late 90s, early 2000s. So they're raised with a lot of freedom. A lot of times I was with them, so we're out there doing everything together. So let's see here. Let's see, that was Mike. What's this one? This is from Ohio. Her name is Jennifer. Jennifer from Ohio, if you're listening or watching. What's something you let your older kids do that you would never let your Gen Alpha daughter do now? Oh, God. Again, there's a word for it. It's different for boys and girls. There's a word for it. I don't know, but you know what? A lot of things, almost everything, especially when it comes to being outside of my sight or control. Not that I have sight and control on my daughter, but again, you know what I mean? I lose her once and she's never coming back. So there's a lot more precautions. I'm just older, I'm wiser, and I understand a lot more. I'm not saying boys aren't taken ever. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I was a lot younger then. I had these certain values then, these certain understandings of the world, and I kept my kids safe accordingly and to what I felt was safe and actually protective. You can ask my older kids, Mom, we screened out a few people. We kept a few people away. There was a few people that popped up on our radar. I'm like, yeah, no, we'll just go this way, and they can just be over there, right? And it was understood, and later found out one of them was kind of true, and I don't know about the rest, but there's just certain just vibes, and it's just not worth it, right? So, and then the question was, what did you let my older kids do? Yeah, they're almost 20 years apart. My oldest kids and my youngest daughter. You know what I mean? So, well, I don't know. They're pretty far apart. So, they, obviously their age, but going back to when my oldest boys were 9 turning 10, no, they had bikes and they could take off. They had, check in and be around certain areas. And, and there was 2 of them, maybe that helped. They were always together. So that's probably had a lot to do with it too. So, we have a few of these questions. Let's see. Let's find, Tony, California. What's up, Tony? Be honest. Have you gotten softer as a dad, or has parenting actually gotten harder? You know what? I've actually learned, what's more important when it comes to like the parenting thing. And like the baby mama said, we have boundaries for this daughter. Spending time and having boundaries, letting the kid kind of be themselves, but making sure you're right there to redirect and when they whatever the case is, whether it's attitude or tone or not doing something or wanting them to start doing something, so however we enforce that, right? And yes, gotten softer. I have. I've understood it. I understand a different kind of way. I used to be like kind of loud and yelly, screamy, and thought I had to scream to be heard and all that neat shit. So, it's not necessarily softer. So I've just learned kind of more how to talk, I guess, and maybe and set boundaries and then provide a consequence. I know that sounds kind of goofy or whatever, but that's kind of how we do it. You know what I mean? So, we never have to, she's never really in trouble too much, because she listens the first or second time. She really does. And a little tone, her mom will, jump on her for her tone and stuff. You know what I mean? I get it sometimes, but, she's kind of an easy kid. I mean, knock on wood. So, all right. That was Tony from California. Let's see here. Let's go. Florida woman, Michelle. This is Michelle from Florida. Florida out there. Where is he? Does it give a city? No, she did not give a city. All right. Which generation of your kids had the childhood closest to yours? And when did you notice that childhood had really changed? You know what? My oldest kids had the childhood closest to mine because I think it was, well, for one, I was only 20 when, my first kid was born. So I was still pretty young. And then my second kid was born when I was 22. I say I was, so technically I'm out of my childhood, but I was not an adult. I was not growing up, and I honestly had no business having kids back then that young. I just did not have it together up here or anywhere else in my life to be any kind of like positive and helpful. I mean, I wasn't like horrible and all bad. I just, there's a lot of shit I needed to do. So, but anyways, they had the childhood closest to mine, the good and the bad. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, they had a lot of the freedoms. Again, because I think they were boys, and I'm obviously a boy, and I had 4 brothers, so that was kind of what I was used to. Was kind of like just the guy kind of way of doing things, I guess. I don't know, just being around guys the whole time. Just had 2 more myself, and so it was kind of the same, right? A lot of the freedoms were the same. But, my Gen Z son, his freedoms were a lot the same, but we had to parent him a little different. He had, he had to take a couple, we had to, how do we want to say this? We had to kind of figure out a new way to kind of parent, our Gen Zs, right? So, they had a lot of technology. They had a lot of different, they didn't have exposure to the same, like, growing up that like we did, like my older boys did. They're kind of our whole generation disconnected. So a lot of their influences didn't like have, they didn't have to go out and get a lot. It was kind of all technology kind of brought everything home or brought everything here, right? To where when I was a kid, if you wanted to go to the store, you had to go to the store to get a bike, or you had to walk, F that. And if you had to meet somebody, you had to time it just right with the phone call, and I'll meet you on this corner, da 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 da. Anyways, so the Z's, I think, was the biggest change, to be honest with you. With the technology, they had technology. I think they were born with it, kind of, or they grew up with the smartphone, and then my alpha it's already here, and they're growing up with AI, right? So, a good question, Michelle, Florida. See, there's actually a few in here. Thank you guys for jumping in, man. And I assume these are all, the audio listeners over there. So let's see. Let's go down a few from here. Oh, here we go. Rick, you are from, where you at? Where is that? That's Nevada. Rick from Nevada. What's something your older kids had to figure out on their own that your youngest now has as an app, tutorial, or GPS for? Yeah, that's map printing, that's CD burning, that's downloading, that's connecting to the internet. My older kids are experts at all of those things, right? So those kids are really experts, and that whole generation are really good at still bridging the digital and analog age. They weren't, they were still in the digital age, but there were still a lot of analog leftovers by the time they were up in, in the young ages for the home computer and stuff like that. So I think, so maps, we had to print maps. We didn't have smartphones with GPS yet. We were still on maps. And the convenient thing was, We could print MapQuest, I think it was, and there was a couple others that we could do, and print. We had a few pages, or at one point we got the option to just do bulleted list, or we could do the picture with the roads and all that. You could do all that shit. So I think, traveling is one, and I think applying for work, that shifted for those guys too. I think by the time my older kids were looking for work, a lot of places were online, but not all of them. So they were still doing the balance between showing up in person and applying online. And then my youngest kid, she'll probably never have to talk to a human to get a job, and she'll probably get a job and not even working with another human at some point, right? So, so I think they had to figure that out, the translation, and resumes and interview skills and all that stuff. And so I don't think my younger kids will have to do that too much. It depends on what they do, unless they remove the human factor from the whole job process. So that was a good question too. Let's see here. What's the weirdest sentence you've ever had to say that your own parents would never have understood? Oh, that's a good one. Let's see. I think one time I smacked my kid like a bap, like across his butt, and told him not to hit your brother. Don't hit your brother. And I'm like, that was hella dumb. That was hella. I remember making a big deal out of that. Hitting the kid to tell him not to hit. I think that was pretty dumb. You know what? That's a good one. I have to think on that one. What that my parents would never understood. I don't know. My parents are old school, and stop fighting in the group chat or turn your location back on. Yeah, no, I have to come back on that one. Let's see here. We got time. I'll keep this kind of short, but we have time for a couple more. Let's see. Mark from Florida asked, what happens first if all your kids lose Wi-Fi for 24 hours? Well, so my daughter stays at home a lot without Wi-Fi. She can't really hard connect to the router, so she would be dead in the water with her electronic. And the TV could hardwire, so we could still have, streaming and stuff like that. But let's say we lost internet, right? Yeah, we would all feel it, but I think my daughter would feel it the most. My son, my Gen Z, he would probably just go outside and work on his car or something and just keep checking whatever, maybe drive around or something. And my older kids, they just put their phone down and go do something. They come back to it. They're definitely into tech, but they can survive. I guess the true test, can you survive without tech? Here's the ice I heard. Des Shepherd, Des Bishop. I'm going to play his clip here in a minute, but Des Bishop, he's so funny. He nailed it too. And I guess this is the, it kind of goes with this, but, the true test, if you're, maybe what age you are, or, what generation or whatever, is how long can you go without tech? And can you go to the bathroom without your phone? How many times have you sat down and said, shit, got back up and walked out and grabbed your phone and went back and sat down again? How many times? I think the older we are, the more we can do it. The younger we are, the less it's just not going to happen. I'm guilty. I've done it. So I want to play this clip. I was going to play it for Riley, and I was actually going to take her headphones off because she doesn't need to hear this part. There's a few F-bombs in here. And I'm not sure if this is copyrighted. It's stand-up. It might be copyrighted. I don't know. We're about to find out.
My mother's favorite thing to say was, get out of my sight. That was her favorite thing to say. Get out of my sight.
Hold on back.
I would have a kid tomorrow if I could parent my kids the way that I was parented, because my parents were never fucking with us. My mother's favorite thing to say was, get out of my sight. That was her favorite thing to say. Get out of my sight. If we came home from school, if we were in the house more than 2 minutes and it wasn't raining, she'd be like, what are you doing in my house? Get the fuck out of my house. Are you watching all my children? No? Then get the fuck out of the house. It's not your time. Myself and my brothers would disappear for hours on our own, unattended, out on the street. The only thing that would bring us home was hunger and the moon.
Hunger and the moon. That was it. And that's something my daughter just won't get to experience growing up. She's already 9, so that part, she's either smack dab in the middle of that right now, and it's just not happening.
That was it. Outside on our own, unattended. And of course, guys my age, people, my friends, we love to wax lyrical about the good old days of going outside to play on your own. And then young people always say, yeah, but you could go outside and play back in the day because society was safer back then. Wrong. Society was not safer back then. We just didn't know how unsafe it was. Watch any of these Netflix documentaries. They all begin the same way. Somebody goes, back then we just didn't know. We didn't know. We were clueless. Predators everywhere. A van could have pulled up and been like, hey, kids, get in. We would have been like, yeah, we've seen Scooby-Doo. Let's ride. Let's go. Once we don't go to the abandoned amusement park, I think we're going to be okay.
That answers the first question. Why does my Gen Alpha daughter not have as many freedoms as I did at the same age? Here's why. Because I did, and we lost a bunch of kids.
Outside on our own, unattended, in the 80s in New York. This is what makes me laugh. People are like, oh, society was safer back then. You watch any of these fucking documentaries about the 80s in New York? It was fucking chaos. Plus, we were on the street. No fucking speed bumps. No four-way stop signs. No fucking parents. Just two-hand touch on the street, and we were fine.
This is Des Bishop. If you guys catch his stand-up, man, the dude's hella fun. He's got hella good content.
Now you can't go outside even though society's safer. I feel bad for these kids. Society's safer and they can't go out and enjoy it. Parents are like, don't go out there. There's peanuts out there. Don't go out there. There's peanuts. And yes, I know there were some children kidnapped in the 1980s. But I think it's a worthy sacrifice for 7 or 8 kids on a milk carton for the millions upon millions of happy childhoods that happened as a result of their sacrifice. And it has not gone unnoticed. Thank you for your service.
That's why. That's exactly why. That's 100% exactly why. Now we know predators are everywhere. They steal kids. They're everywhere. All right, we can wrap this up. You don't have to drag this out too long. But hey, you know what? I just want to remind you guys, having this podcast is hella fun, and having it, is a creative outlet. And it's just me being me and Greg being Greg, and just two dudes trekking through the idea of whatever growing up is, whatever the hell we're doing at that point in time, right? But Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the motivating principles behind this whole podcast is like, make your content and your tribe will find you. So I'm going to give a shout out to my tribe, no matter where you are. And you know what? We have a big ass tribe. We have thousands of followers. We really do. We are in hundreds of countries, at least over our entire lifetime. We're probably in a good 40 countries every month. 40, maybe a little bit more, right? So anyways, I'm going to give a shout out to all you guys. Just love it. I love how much, just how much we get to share and how much, all that stuff. So anywho, which child is most likely to say, Dad, nobody says that anymore? Well, probably my youngest daughter. And if I say something cringy, my alpha kid, my Gen Z kid will say something. But probably my Gen Alpha, and I'll butcher her slang words on purpose. I'm like, oh my God, that vibe is so ate that drip sauce. Good Lord. And like, Dad, nobody talks like that. They don't say that. And ate that drip sauce, and that's just it's really not how that works. So, anyways, who would survive longer? You at age 9 in 2026 or your 9-year-old in 1985? So I was what, in 3rd grade? 4th grade? 3rd, 4th grade? Put me in 4th grade. No. Well, maybe. I got in trouble a lot. Renee, probably 1985. I got in trouble a lot. I'm not sure how they'd handle the kind of trouble if I did all the same things here, like in 2026, what would they do? I don't know, man. I'd be in a lot of trouble. Or my 9-year-old in 1985. I think my 9-year-old in 1985 would do better than I would in today's, because I had a hard time then. I'm going to maybe have a harder time now. I don't know. But we didn't have like IEPs then. We just had to pass the proficiency test at the end of the year, and I aced those. My challenges were all behavior. You know what I mean? So, however they support that now, I am not sure. So, I would say my 9-year-old in 1985 would survive much longer than I would my 9-year-old self here. 100%. Yep. Oh, let's see. Music. All my kids love music and listen to it a lot, and they all have their own stuff, but they're all music lovers, so that's good. Let's see. Mark, Florida kids. No, that was Wisconsin. Hey, Rob. Rob from Wisconsin? Nice. Wisconsin. Yeah, we'll give you a shout out there, of course, man. Thanks for listening, man. Hey, Rob from Wisconsin, do your kids make fun of your Gen X habits? And what's the one thing they roast you for the most? You know what? The shirt. My daughter got this for me for Christmas or something, and I'm like, hey, honey, I want to cut this shirt, like, cut the sides out and stuff. And like, oh my God, who does that anymore? And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so can I do it? And she gave me a hard time over it, but she just called me out on that. Nobody wears shirts like that anymore. I'm like, well, it's for around the house. It's for this, blah, blah, blah. It's comfortable. I'm like, this is the kind of, if I could wear this shit to work, I would. Good Lord, if this were considered business casual with the side open, you know what I mean? I would do it. I would hella do it, especially in this hot. We're out here in agricultural California. We're in the hundreds right now. I could do this. This shorts and flip-flops, 100%. All right. Oh, let's see. Yeah, probably the way I dress. Jeans and T-shirts and stuff. Some of my habits. I don't know. Let's see. Let's wrap this up. I said that like 3 times already. What? Chris from Oregon. Here we go. Oregon, right? Oregon. Okay. What's the weirdest sentence you've had to say as a dad? I've already asked you that one. I've already asked that one. Let's go about it over here. Do one more. Bear you guys from the burden of watching me scroll the list. All right, let's do a technology one. All right, Dave, and you are Michigan. Dave in Michigan. David. What's something your Gen Alpha daughter has that you would have killed to have at 9? And what did you have at 9 that you wish she could experience? That's a great question. I'm going to keep that one. Dave, shout out to you, man. I love that question. What's something your Gen Alpha daughter has that you would have killed to have at 9? Well, so, I mean, at 9 years old, I was big on the cartoons on Saturday morning. I was playing outside. I had, my bike and stuff. I had friends. I had an Atari. I had a little black and white TV in my room. At some point, maybe it was, the next grade or whatever. She has a, a bigger TV. She does have a tablet. She does have the Switch, and we do the dance games and stuff. She's into dance and cheer, so we do a lot of travel, so that kind of counts as like maybe what she has at 9. We go to Tahoe, we go to Vegas, we go to a few spots in the Bay Area, we go to like Stockton and like Roseville and stuff for the cheer competition. We do fundraising, we make payments on this stuff, and we take, we do a lot of fundraising. So we get to do all that. So maybe looking back, I would have killed to gone to, get to do these road trips, maybe like that. That would have been pretty good. That would have been a lot of fun. I played Pop Warner football, so we did road trip. We got to ride the bus and go to different towns, and that was kind of fun. But I mean, we weren't going to Vegas, you know what I mean? We weren't going to Tahoe. We weren't doing all this, this kind of, extra stuff. So, and then, what, honestly, what can she experience? I really think that, is a core value of Gen X was the idea that, we were mini adults, and part of what shaped that adulthood, I really think, is the time after school, where she is in charge of a few things, that she has to do. She has a couple of chores. She has some homework to do. And, maybe for her, some, maybe dance practice or, some cheer practice or whatever. Maybe she wants to sit down and get some tablet time, right? She could, oh, thing's messing up right now. Hold on. I think that she could experience that maturity of choosing, making her own little choices right there with the immediate consequences that day. I'm not saying she's going to get in trouble every day, but with that pressure, because I think making your own choices, having that kind of managerial responsibility over yourself with the daily pressure of, for us, we were going to get in trouble that day and we were in trouble for the whole week and we still had to do the chores all week long, right? So we were kind of faced with that stuff. I kind of wish my daughter could experience something like that in the natural process to where her peers are experiencing that. And that was just the way, right? She does have a lot of responsibility. We do hold her accountable for her stuff. You know what I mean? She's a really good kid. It only takes her once or twice. And she's, she does the job, right? So we don't have any really complaints, but I think maybe all kids could maybe experience that. And then the idea of the excitement of the first job, a little bit more, having that little bit of financial independence, or, looking forward to, fast food or the paper route, or working, part-time in the family business or somewhere, you know what I mean? That the idea of looking forward towards that, the summer job or something like that too. So I think I'd like for her to experience that. Oh, Renee. I wear cutout shirts everywhere, bringing it back. That's right. We are bringing it back. Yes, thanks for watching, brother. I love you, man. And Renee, Sony Walkman, and I rode my bike at 7 to my grandma's ranch. Yeah. I have a Sony. I had a Watchman. I have a Walkman in here somewhere. Yeah, you know what? The idea of being able to carry music with you really small and not have a bunch of D batteries and a giant boombox, and with the headphones that sounded like, and the big speaker right in front of you. And you know what? I'm working on this episode. It's like things that AI just doesn't know or won't know, right? And one of them is when we first got like a Walkman or wore headphones, how loud we would talk. We would talk hella louder, so we have to hear ourselves, and we end up talking louder. Anyways, it was like a phenomenon, like, I don't know, it was like a thing. So anyways, that kind of aspect happened, or that kind of thing happened when, you get the headphones, start talking loud. Oh my God, it's so good. And you're like, you don't have to yell at me, dude, I'm right here, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, off topic, but let's see. We have 32 minutes. We're good, man. You know what I mean? We are good. Let's see. Ingle, Renee, how you guys doing? Chris, I appreciate all you guys. So let's do one more. We find one. There's a whole nother list up here. Here we go. Boom. Tony. Okay, here we go. Last one. I'm pretty open about this. What parenting rule did you swear you would never copy from your parents and then catch yourself using on your own kids? Well, it's less of a rule and more of a way, but it was like the yelly, screamy guy. I caught that from the parents, you know what I mean? And that was just like the way of talking. And it was more like, if it's important, it was really loud. And if mom's really loud, you better pay attention because it's really important, right? It was kind of like the understanding of it. So, broke that habit, and so that's probably one. But one rule, here it is. I say this at work all the time. Well, not all the time, but just as a fun thing. But here's my mom's one rule. And here it was. I'd leave for I'm going out for the night, or I'm just going out or whatever. This is before I was driving and I was still in school, in high school or whatever. She'd say, "Home by 10, no drinking." Okay, home by 10, no drinking. Those are the rules, right? I never really copied that, for my kids, but it was always a running joke because I didn't grow up to be a drinker. I grew up to kind of be a drinker. So, I don't know, she should have said, home by 10, no tweaking, and I would have been much better off. So, anyways, that was the joke. So, That's going to do it for me and Chatty McChatface tonight. Hey, buddy, did you fall over? I appreciate you guys for tuning in and checking us out, man. I really do. Thanks for coming by and hanging out with us. I really do just enjoy just kind of being with you guys. And then our audio only folks, man, I just can't give you guys enough love and praise. So thank you guys for tuning in, hanging out. My name is Jason. This is Chatty McChatface. We are out. We'll see you next week. I went to do that one. Ripping Tribe. I had to check in with my mom when I go, yeah, you had to call and check in. And then I was talking about this the other day about calling and checking in. We couldn't use the excuse. I couldn't. And I just say for all of us, we couldn't use the excuse. Oh, I was at Johnny's house. Well, I didn't have the number over there. Oh, sorry. No, because we were supposed to call and give mom Johnny's number. It's up to us to be somewhere where we can be found. We need to be somewhere I can find you then, was what I was told. Speaking about checking in, right? Yeah, that was on us. So we couldn't use that excuse. We had to be within 2 phone calls or something. Greg talks about this all the time. His mom can find him within 2 phone calls. Find out exactly where he's at. You make one and then a second phone call, and then he was there. So unless mom was asleep. Yeah. Yeah. Remember turning the ringer off or turning it down or putting it on a pillow? Yeah, we can do all that shit, make her quiet. So anyways, appreciate you guys. Have a good night, everyone. Peace.